What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this right here is my original Switch that I got on launch day in 2017. It's not the original Joy-Cons, obviously, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, this is the original Switch I got in 2017 on launch day. However, we got a huge announcement during the most recent Nintendo Direct that's gonna basically mean that we could just like toss this piece of junk in the trash. We're not gonna need it here shortly. So of course I've watched the aforementioned Nintendo Direct that we just got a few days ago, and I want to talk about the biggest announcement. So without further ado, let's rock. Now, as I always say with these big showcases, there's a ton of stuff that they showed off. This video would be like 2 hours long if I hit every little thing that they talked about during this Nintendo Direct. We get a few of these usually a year, and they're usually not this big of a deal, but obviously this was a huge one, so this video would be so long if I hit on every single thing. So I'm only going to spotlight a few things during this video, but as I say every time I do one of these showcases, it doesn't really matter what I think. Like, I'm gonna pick out the things that I think are interesting, but I'm just some random dude on the internet. So just because I don't mention something that you're super psyched about does not mean that it's not going to be awesome. I also want to mention, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but like much of the Midwest these last couple of days, we have been getting hit with huge storms. I actually had to spend a good few hours in my bathroom with my two dogs, my wife and my cat. My cat doesn't really get along with one of my dogs, so that was kind of a nightmare. We had to spend a couple of hours in the bathroom because we had a tornado warning. It was a whole thing. Luckily, nobody got hurt. I mean, I think a few houses got damaged and trees got knocked down, but luckily nobody got hurt as far as I understand, so that was good. It was just kind of a nightmare in that small ass bathroom, but anyways, that's beside the point. The reason I bring that up is I'm actually having some sinus issues. My allergies have been going absolutely bananas the last couple of days. I think because of the storms have kind of kicked up a lot of stuff, and the seasons changing and all that good stuff. So I don't know if you can hear my voice, but I'm kind of struggling right now, so hopefully I can kind of push through this video because this one's a big one. All right, so I'm not gonna bury the lead with this video, and we're gonna start off with the biggest announcement during this Direct. There was a lot of cool stuff that they talked about in this Direct, but of course, the biggest one was the Nintendo Switch 2. And I know this isn't a huge deal, and I'll move on very quickly, but I was a little bit bummed that they're calling it the Switch 2. I guess they kind of did this with the Wii U, but as far as Nintendo's concerned, it always feels like they kind of do their own thing in general, but especially when it comes to naming their consoles, and the fact that they were just like, they just slapped a 2 at the end of it, just kind of feels kind of lame. And I was expecting something fun, and I didn't get that. So that was kind of weird, but again, not a big deal. Honestly, the first part of the Switch 2 trailer that we saw during the Direct just kind of felt like they were just shitting on the original Switch, which, to their credit, I don't disagree. I've been saying this for years. The original Switch was outdated the moment it hit shelves, but it just kind of felt interesting that they were just like, this is way better. It felt like Andy when he got Buzz and he was just done playing with Woody. It just kind of felt like they were like, we get it, the Switch was a piece of shit, but this one's way better. And it honestly, based on the trailer, based on what we've seen, it does feel like it's better in pretty much every way. There's bigger buttons and screens. It did feel like they were emphasizing that a little too much for my taste. It felt like those cell phones that have like the giant buttons for the people that are super old. That's kind of how it felt for some of this trailer, but they did talk about, of course, it being 1080p in handheld and 4K in TV mode, which is very exciting. It will be 120 frames per second, which another thing that is going to make this way better than the first one. There's bigger storage. However, you can only use micro SD express cards, which is a little weird because now you can't transfer your micro SD card that you had from your original Switch to your Switch 2. So I thought that was kind of odd. There are USB-C ports on both the bottom and the top of the Switch 2, which two things. One, thank God, it's going to make charging this thing way easier, especially if you are playing it while you charge. And they did come out with a Switch 2 camera. I'm probably not going to get the camera just because I'm not going to pay $50 for a webcam that I have plenty of webcams, so I don't really need another webcams. But if you do go for the Switch 2 camera, it's going to make that setup way easier. The Joy-Cons do connect magnetically now, which I think is way cooler and just satisfying to kind of click in. Obviously, I haven't done it yet, but I always kind of thought that the sliding thing was a little lame. So the fact that they have the Joy-Cons connect magnetically, I'm a big fan of that. Again, I haven't actually used it yet, so I don't know how it works, but I am definitely looking forward to that. They also have mouse functionality, and there are they did show off some games, Metroid Prime and Civilization. I think the RTS games that come out for Switch are going to really use the mouse functionality a lot. Honestly, I don't really care about that so much as long as I don't have to replace the Joy-Cons a bunch of times due to drift. The new dock comes in with a built-in fan, which I thought was a nice touch. And while all that stuff is important, all those upgrades and all those new things coming with the Switch 2 are important, most of you probably only care about two things. How much does it cost? And when is it going to be released? And we did get both of those answers with this Direct. So when I talk about prices, and I was kind of holding off doing this video, I had actually written this a couple of days ago, and then I was going to record it yesterday, but I didn't feel very good. And a lot of stuff has been changing the last like 24 hours with the new tariffs, especially if you live in the US. So I'm going to talk about the price as we know it right now. I'm recording this Saturday morning to come out later today. Again, I kind of held off on doing this video because I was hoping that we'd get more information. But as of right now, this is the information we have. So price is going to be a big part of this video, especially later on in the video. So if I say a price and in a week from now, it's a different price, obviously I can't do anything about that. But as of right now, the Switch 2 is going to be a hefty $449.99, which is quite the jump from the previous Switch, which was only $299.99 at launch. Now, I know a lot of people are freaking out about this huge price jump. I actually don't think it's that big of a deal, and we'll get to why later on in the video. Now, again, if it goes much higher than the $449.99, which from now on, I'm just going to say $450 because that's basically what it is. And it's just an easier number for me to say. But if it goes higher than that $450, then it's definitely too expensive. But right now, I'm okay with the $450. And I know that I might be in the minority when I say that. It will also be released on June 5th, which is exciting for multiple reasons, but also it's a few days before my birthday, so it's going to be kind of an early birthday present, assuming that I can get my hands on one on June 5th, which we'll get to that here in a second. It's going to be a huge month in gaming for Patty. That's a few weeks before Death Stranding 2 comes out. I've already pre-ordered the special edition of Death Stranding 2, which if you watch my previous videos, you know me pre-ordering a game by itself is not something I typically do, and I especially don't pre-order the special edition, so you know how excited I am about that game. So the fact that the Switch 2 and Death Stranding 2 are both coming out in the same month, and it also happens to be my birthday month, I'm definitely excited about that. Now, here's where things get a little tricky, and this is kind of what I was waiting to do this video until we had a more concrete idea of when the pre-orders were going to start. So when I wrote this, the pre-orders were announced for April 9th. That is no longer the case because I think it was like a day later, or maybe it was even the same day. I can't remember exactly. US announced a bunch of tariffs against other countries, and that obviously is going to impact the price of the Switch 2 and its games. So they have postponed the pre-orders indefinitely. So as of right now, as I'm recording this Saturday morning, I could not see that they've made that date official or not. So we are still kind of in a waiting pattern for when the pre-orders are going to be set. Again, the $450 price tag may not even be the price tag when we do get to pre-order this stuff. The fact that they're delaying the pre-order date leads me to believe they are going to up the price, because that's the only reason that you would do that. Because if it was still going to stay at $450, they would just let people pre-order them as soon as possible, because then once you pre-order it at $450, it's going to look really shitty if you make people pay a little bit more later. I did get the original Switch on release date. I don't remember it being hard to get at that time. Maybe I'm misremembering it, and you can let me know in the comments below, but I don't remember it being a big deal. I remember pre-ordering it from Best Buy, picking it up the day that it came out, and it not being a huge deal. I mean, it was a huge deal, but like, it wasn't difficult. It was certainly no PS5, which I also got on launch date. I mean, I purchased it on launch date. It took a couple of days for it to actually get to me, but that was a whole ordeal. Obviously, I had to take a whole day off of work, and it took me a long time, basically most of that day, to get my hands on one. And I ended up having to, I wouldn't say overpay, because I paid for the bundle that I got, but like, given all of the things that I got in that bundle, it was worth it. But I definitely overpaid of what I wanted to pay, because I had to actually get a bundle, because that was the only thing I could get my hands on. So scalping culture, unfortunately, has become a bigger deal nowadays than it was in 2017 when the original Switch happened. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my hands on a pre-order when these come available, eventually when they come available, which, if you're watching this video and you're a scalper and you're excited about this, getting your hands on one of these and screwing people out of it, go fuck yourself, because you're a terrible garbage human being. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed that I'm going to be able to get a Switch 2 when we eventually get to pre-order them. I am planning on getting the Mario Kart World bundle. That's the hope, but we're going to, again, talk a little bit more about pricing later on. I don't think I'm going to be able to get a Mario Kart World bundle, because I think that's going to be the premium thing that everybody's going to be going for. Because again, as of right now, we don't know this for sure, but as of right now, it's going to be $500 with Mario Kart World bundle. And given the price of Mario Kart World, which we'll get to later, which I do have an issue with, and we'll talk about that later in the video, that's a steal. The fact that it's only $50 more than the Switch 2 by itself, and obviously you have to have a Switch 2 to play Mario Kart World. It only makes sense, if you're going to plan on getting that game, you might as well get the Mario Kart World bundle. So we'll see how that goes. Again, that's the goal, but I wouldn't suspect I'm going to get the Mario Kart World bundle. Speaking of Mario Kart World, it is going to be a launch title for the Switch 2. It does feel like it's kind of their premium game that they're pimping for the Switch 2. Obviously, like I just said, it's going to be a bundle with the Switch 2, so that's exciting. It's a open world Mario Kart game, and you heard me right. I said it's an open world Mario Kart game. And honestly, I like Mario Kart. It's fun to play, but I am definitely not obsessed with the Mario Kart games like I am with Zelda or Pokemon. I think I'm just more excited to see how, or better yet, if they can pull off a open world Mario Kart game. Now, we didn't get too many details. They did confirm that there will be 24 racers at a time, which just means it's going to be even more chaotic than a Mario Kart race already is. They did also confirm a new race mode called Knockout Tour that looks really cool. And there's also some wall driving and grinding, which I thought was a cool touch to these games. But it does feel like they're saving a lot of the big reveals for its own direct on April 17th. Now, I haven't heard if that got delayed as well. I suspected it didn't, but given the price, which again we'll get to later, I'd imagine that direct on April 17th, if it happens on April 17th, is not going to go well for Nintendo, because I know people are really pissed off about the price of Mario Kart World. Again, I'm kind of teasing later on in this video. I know I've teased it a couple of times, but we'll get to the price here in a little bit. I have my thoughts for sure. But one of the available drivers on Mario Kart World, as he is for pretty much all the Mario Kart games, is Donkey Kong, and he will actually be getting his own 3D platformer in the vein of Mario's Odyssey called Donkey Kong Bananza, which will be released on the Switch 2 on July 7th, which, based on the little gameplay that we saw, It looks like you're going to be able to Hulk smash everything in sight, which I'm definitely a fan of. I'm a huge fan of this franchise. I think I might have mentioned this before on past videos, but Donkey Kong Country is one of my favorite video games of all time. It's one of the main reasons I love platformers as much as I do. So I'm super, super excited for this game, even though I'm not a huge fan of Mario's Odyssey, and sometimes those games are kind of hit or miss for me, depending on the difficulty. But because I'm such a big Donkey Kong fan, I'm definitely excited for this game, and the fact that we're getting it in July makes what already kind of looks like a great year in gaming even better. So the last game I want to spotlight is one that came completely out of left field. If you had given me 100 guesses about what was going to happen in this direct, I would have not told you we were going to get a From Software exclusive to the Switch 2. But that's what we got. The newest game from the makers of Dark Souls and Elden Ring, From Software, gave us, or at least revealed, the Dusk Bloods, a seemingly spiritual sequel to another From Software game, Bloodborne, which is set to be exclusive to the Switch 2 in 2026. We don't know much about the game because it was kind of your typical revealed trailer. It does feel like it has the gothic vibe of Bloodborne. It also has vampires, which is exciting. Also, it does appear that you can kind of anamorph into a T-Rex, so there's that. However, according to the game's website, Dusk Bloods will be PvPvE, which essentially means you're competing against other players while also fighting NPC enemies. So it does appear that Night Rain, their Elden Ring co-op spin-off, isn't gonna be like a one-off multiplayer game. It does feel like From Software is leaning into the multiplayer moving forward, which makes me very nervous, but we haven't seen Night Rain yet, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt until we get to play that game. If that game is dope like I expect it to be, then I'm gonna feel way more better about this game being multiplayer as well. I will say I'm very curious to see if Dusk Blood stays exclusive to the Switch 2. If I remember correctly, and you can correct me in the comments down below, but I think a recent Monster Hunter game was a timed exclusive, like it was only exclusive to the Switch for a limited amount of time. So I'm curious if they do the same thing with Dusk Bloods. Like I said earlier, I only wanted to spotlight a few games. They talked about a ton more games. Let me know in the comments down below what games you're most excited about that are coming to the Switch 2. But I didn't want to highlight everything because I wanted to spend a good chunk of this video, as I've already kind of teased a few times in this video, talking about the controversy coming out of the Switch 2 Direct. And that, of course, has a lot to do with the pricing, not just of the Switch 2, which in my opinion, I actually don't have that huge of an issue with the high price for the Switch 2. Yes, it could change with the tariffs, and of course, depending on how much it is, if it even changes at all, my opinion might change, of course. But as of right now, if it sticks with $450, I actually don't have that big of an issue with it. I know I might be in the minority when it comes to that, but yes, it is a lot more than the Switch. And I think with a lot of the other things we're going to talk about, in combination with the price of the Switch 2, because obviously you're not going to just buy a Switch 2. That's insane. What games would you play on it? If you're just going to play your Switch games, then why would you even bother getting a Switch 2? So yeah, with the combination of everything else that you're going to buy with the Switch 2, it's going to get really pricey really quickly. But based on the price of the original Switch in 2017, all of the upgrades and inflation, I actually don't think it's that bad of a price. The issue I have, and we'll get into it here in a second, is everything else that they showed off in this direct, like the camera, like the games, like the upgrades to the older games. And it feels like with all of these price increases that Nintendo knows that they have a very loyal fan base, and it does feel like they're kind of trying to squeeze every drop that they can get out of that loyalty. And I of course want to start off with the price of Mario Kart World. I was just getting used to the idea of paying $70 for games. Then Nintendo comes out with this direct, and it felt like they were coming from the top rope with this $80 bullshit. Yes, you heard me correct. Mario Kart World will be $80 at launch. Again, some of this price might change depending on the tariffs. all that good stuff. I mean, not good stuff, but you know what I mean. So yes, Mario Kart World will be $80 at launch. And honestly, based on everybody else's reaction to that announcement, I feel like I'm kind of a little bit more reserved in my opinions. I actually thought I was going to have a bit of a hot take, but it turns out people are way more angry than I am. You'd expect me to rage in this video, and I'm not quite going to do that. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. So I am willing, and maybe Nintendo doesn't deserve this, especially considering some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm going to get way angrier at some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but maybe they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, but I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on Mario Kart World. And the reason I say that is because Donkey Kong, the new Donkey Kong game that we just talked about, is only $70. And that seems like, and we haven't gotten the full details on that game, but that seems like a single player game like Mario's Odyssey or Astrobot or whatever, like those 3D platformers that you're just gonna play from start to finish. You maybe play it again to get all the collectibles, all that stuff, but it's a very single player experience. That game is only $70. And so the fact that Mario Kart World, which is a multiplayer game, or it can be a multiplayer game, and it's an open world game, is $80. I wonder if there's more to it, and we just haven't learned that stuff yet until the direct that we're supposed to get on April 17th. So if they come out on April 17th and they actually show us some stuff that would justify that extra $10, then I'm fine with it. Now, if we get that direct and they don't justify that $10, then we riot, then we get upset. But for right now, I do think that we need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Mario Kart World price. We have plenty to be upset about. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to get upset about the pricing of a lot of this stuff that they showed off during this direct. But for right now, as far as Mario Kart World is concerned, I think we need to pick our battles, because I do think that I am at least willing to give them a little bit of a longer leash, and maybe they justify that extra $10. The thing that got me way more upset than the $80 for Mario Kart World is actually Nintendo showed off essentially a tech demo for their Switch 2. They basically made an entire game that's going to teach you how to use things with your Switch 2, which is a cool idea. I definitely appreciate that. I liked that when PlayStation 5 did that with Astro's Playroom. My fellow PlayStation 5 owners will know what I'm talking about, but basically it was this fun platformer that you'd spend like an hour or two playing that would teach you mostly about the new controller, but also just the PlayStation 5 in general. And that was fun, but that came preloaded on your PlayStation 5. You didn't have to pay extra for that. Nintendo is actually making you pay more for this tech demo. And yes, they're fun. I like playing those types of games, especially if they're quick and easy to play and they teach me a little bit about the new console. But you are outside your mind, Nintendo, if you think people are going to pay for a tech demo. But it gets way, way worse. So the Switch 2 is backwards compatible. You can play your original Switch games, at least the compatible Switch games. You can actually play on your Switch 2, which is great. That's not something I'm upset about, obviously. But a lot of the more popular games, you do have to pay to upgrade to the Switch 2. Some of them are free, so I do want to give them credit for that. Some of the upgrades are free, but for like games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you actually have to pay for those Switch 2 upgrades, which is bullshit. But the cherry on top of this shitty, greedy sundae from Nintendo is the fact that they did show off that there is a new chat button. It's the C button on the Switch 2 controller, and it's just a game chat button, which is cool. They also showed off, I didn't really talk about this when I was talking about the Switch 2 because there was bigger things I wanted to talk about, but they also talked about how there was a built-in mic. They had some new audio features as well, which was cool. So they're definitely leaning into the game chat feature of the Switch 2, which I appreciate. However, you have to pay for the game chat. There's literally a button on the Switch 2 controller that if you don't pay Nintendo more money, you cannot use. Now the chat will be free. I think it's a year, but after that, they will make you pay for it. So there will literally be a button on the Switch 2 controller that you cannot use, that will be useless if you don't pay them more money. It's like buying a headset from like Turtle Beach or whatever, and you have to pay them to unmute your headset. It's absolutely bananas. They are outside of their fucking minds if they think that we're gonna pay for this. And I pray, please don't pay for this, because not only will Nintendo try this bullshit in the future, and they'll try to milk us for more and more money if this works, but other companies will see that stuff like this works and they will try it. We already have enough issues with microtransactions and whatnot. So please do us all a huge favor. If you get a Switch 2, do not pay for this bullshit. Do not pay for the chat button. That is absolutely just bananas to me. It is insane that they think that they can get away with this. So yes, the Mario Kart World $80 sucks, but hopefully they justify that price increase. But the fact that they're making us pay for a chat button is absolutely insane to me. All right, so after all of that, I do feel like I need to end the video right there. If I keep going, I'm gonna have to take an extra blood pressure medicine pill for today. So I don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna have to end it here. I don't wanna get too far gone with I don't wanna black out from my rage. So I will say, and I just wanna remind everybody, because I did kind of end the video on a bit of a rant there. Overall, I am excited for the Switch 2. I do think that we get a few of these Nintendo Directs throughout the year, every year, and some of them are kind of duds. This one was not a dud. This was a huge one. It's probably the biggest one I've seen in a long time. So overall, I am really, really excited for the Switch 2. I do think that a lot of the upgrades are going to be well worth it. I mentioned this before, I mentioned it earlier in the video, but the original Switch was outdated when it came out in 2017. And now the Switch 2 isn't state of the art, but it's way closer than the Switch was when it first came out. So I'm definitely excited overall. It's just the greedy price shenanigans that Nintendo is trying right now just puts a sour taste in my mouth. But as always, those are just my thoughts on the Switch 2. Let me know yours in the comments down below. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, as the kids say. If you did really enjoy it, definitely consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related content. So if you like that type of stuff, which you obviously do because you made it this far in the video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy. And we were just talking, and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you? All right, I gotta take this out of the trash can. My wife would be very mad if she knew I put this in the trash can.